Hey, you, Nina here. So, you are officially listening to season 3, wherever you get your podcasts. This is Triggered. Can we play with that? And all month long, we've been playing with sexual assault awareness, right? We've been playing with triggers with it. We've been giving you skills around it. We've been telling you stories. And this episode, we are going to continue playing with it. But there is a question that I will get asked very, very often when I am working with clients, when I am not working with clients. And the question is, Nina, after a sexual assault, I want to get back and involved with people. I've been told that I should, quote unquote, but I don't know how. And today we are going to explore that question. How do I get back to feeling like my fullest, most vibrant sexual self once that idea has been violated? Yes. So we are going to play with it. And of course, it's not going to be everything, friends, but it is going to be at least one facet so that we can explore transforming a hard conversation into a teachable moment. So I want you to have your journal on hand. I want you to have a friend that you can dialogue with about this when that time comes, if and when that time comes. But if you do listen in after this, you are consenting to go into a space where we've agreed, we're going to talk about this. We're going to lean in on this. And that is going to be how we flip the script on this. Yes. So this is the last episode in the April series. And I'm not going to lie to y'all, we're about to change it up for May. Okay. We are going into mental health awareness. We are going to be spending still every week getting a new episode out to you. But I am not going to be growing all four on one thing. We are going to go back to what so many of you have actually requested, which is, Nina, I miss just hearing stories. I miss hearing about universal skills. Well, my friends, thank you for letting me know, because I'm about to bring it to you. Okay. Come May, we are going back to give me those universal skills, give me those universal stories, and then also add on something that helps me recognize what's going on that month and what the rest of the empowered human community is doing as they lean into and exploring their triggers. Yes, yes. So without further ado, I will ask you, are you ready to play?
Welcome to Triggered. Can we play with that? You know that moment when your emotions ramp up in an instant, leaving you feeling helpless, frozen, or out of control? In that moment, you've been emotionally hijacked, the very definition of triggered. And I want to ask you, can we play with that? I'm Nina L. Garcia, drama therapist and empowerment coach of Houston Creative Arts Therapy. Join me as we discover ways to empower you and the people who mean the most to you to transform hard conversations into teachable moments. Triggered. Real playful. Real respectful. Real empowered.
Let's take a breath, y'all. Ooh. So we have a very special guest here, folks. We have Liz Dubé, but before I even let Liz introduce herself, I am going to set the intent for this episode. We are continuing. This is our final episode of Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and we're going to set the intent, right? We want to empower people to turn hard conversations into teachable moments, right? We got to dialogue about it. We got to talk about it. And in order to get there, we have to consent to doing that. So I am consenting to go into potentially hard spaces or sticky spaces or uncomfortable spaces. Liz, how are you feeling about that?
Yes. We're already
starting with it. Yes. Okay. So you might have noticed we're already playing with something here, folks. We have Liz Dubé here of TalkSexWithLiz.com. Liz, will you introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm a sex and relationship therapist. I have a private practice in Long Beach, California, and I offer coaching online, but I really just, I'm all about talking about sex and intimacy. And that's what drives me. That's what excites me. And that's what fills up my heart, to be able to help women that are wanting to become empowered badasses such as yourself. I love your Zoom title, your name here, Empowered Badass. Yes. I hope all your listeners get to feel the same as well, and that the intent for today that they can feel like empowered, sexy badasses.
I love that
today. Yeah.
I love this. I also love that you keep bringing back, and you brought back subject, right? The intent, right? The intent is set there. Like, we want people to be empowered badasses, right? I want that for our listeners, for myself, for you, for the people of the world, right? And it may not be the impact, right? So if at any point, listener, you're like, man, this is not going to serve my journey right now, it's okay to not listen to the rest of this episode. It's okay if that's not where you're at, right? But if it is, my friend, consent to come on the journey with us, right? Because we're definitely going to be playing with this.
Yeah.
All right. So from the very top, on your website, the first thing that pops up, right, is this, and it's like, are you ready to take control of your sex life and start feeling more sexually empowered? And I'm like, yes, that's right. Yes, like that's me. That's my, yes, we're here for it. I have perked up and I am ready for educating or entertainment or whatever it is that you're going to bring to this table, right? What is that? What do we do with that, right? Are we ready to take control of your sex life and start feeling more sexually empowered? Because my answer is yes.
Yeah, it starts from within. And I love that you're saying, let's be conscious about, are we giving ourselves permission? Are we giving consent? And that's got to start from within, is do I want to do the healing that I need to do from sexual assault to be able to get to a place of sexual empowerment? And you've got to give yourself permission that maybe there needs to be some healing that happens first. And then you get to move into the stage of, you got to crawl before you walk, before you run.
Yeah.
And so that has to come from within. That's that sexual empowerment of, am I sexy? Do I get to be able to approach sex from a different place than maybe I was before something bad happened? Or for the listeners that haven't experienced sexual assault, that so many people are just struggling to even give themselves permission to feel sexually empowered, to align with their erotic desires. And whether or not there's trauma, there can be just all of the messages that we've received growing up in media, from Hollywood, that what we desire, what we think is sexy, or that we aren't sexy ourselves. So starting from within, giving the consent, giving ourselves permission to be able to lean into that.
Yeah. I love this image that you've given, which is so apt, I think, right? Of the, like, you got to crawl before you can walk, right? Like, we would never expect somebody to just be like, my baby's just walking, they never crawled, right? You would never hear that, right?
Yeah, they say that's bad for your back, right? Is if you never crawl, you got to build the strength, the foundation.
Yes, right. It doesn't build up those muscles that are needed to connect the body to align in such a way. And I love that imagery of connecting in such a way, because it even speaks to, just like you said, even if we've never had a sexual assault happen, what is our relationship with our sexual self, period, right? What were the messages that we received about it growing up? How do we feel about our sexual self? Are we even allowed to be sexual? What does that mean to be sexual, right? Versus sensual, versus intimate, versus, right? And so when I think about that, like, how do we crawl before we walk? Really asking ourselves first, well, what was my relationship like with my sexual self before any assault happened? Or just what is my relationship with my sexual self now, even if it's never happened, right? So first, like, let's crawl before we walk. Let's really ask ourselves, what story am I telling about me and my sexual self? And if I'm not happy with that story, can I change it? Can I flip the script on it? Can I do that, Liz?
Yes.
So often, right? It's not what mom and dad taught us, parents, guardians, right? It's not the story we received, that it's okay to explore that territory. And so when we have a sexual assault happen that layers on top of that, I mean, we're talking about all the stories that we thought, all the things that made the world okay, have now been shifted, thrown apart. The room's been torn up. And it's like, how do we put it together again? And if I didn't have a healthy relationship with my sexual self before this, how do I even fathom putting that together again? It's a very particular step that I work with my clients, right? When they come in after an assault, or a trauma, and they're trying to figure out, who am I as a sexual being now? How do I relate? How do I feel healthy about that again? When we think about playing it with you though, right? If I were to be like, I want you to head over to Liz, I think she's going to do some amazing work with you and your sexual self and your life, right? So that you can start feeling more sexually empowered. Is there a first step that you typically find pops up with clients?
I think there's certainly a first step that I start in the way that I conceptualize is that I'm wanting to know, what is your narrative? What's the narrative you have surrounding your sexual trauma? Or if you don't have sexual trauma, what is your narrative surrounding sex, sexuality? What is sexy? I want to know what your narrative is, because I won't know where to drive you if I don't know what bumps in the road we're going to anticipate. And so some people come to me with no body image issues. And they're just like, yeah, I feel totally comfortable in my body, but I just don't think that I'm sexy. Some people come to me with lots of body traumas. And it's like, I don't have negative messages about the idea of pleasure, and I can lean into that, but I just have all this like yuckiness surrounding my body. Some people come with conflict, religiosity conflict, where it's like, I don't know, like I was holding the purity, and now that I've released it with this person that I care about, what does that mean? And how do I show up now that I'm giving myself permission to be sexual, but I've been shut down for so many years that how do I figure that out? Then, maybe we have somebody who shows up with sexual trauma, and before they thought they were sexy and they were comfortable in their body, and they felt the power of being a sexy woman and showing up in their erotic selves. But now that was used against them.
Yep.
And so now do I get to feel empowered with that, or is that now disempowering? Absolutely. And so now this idea of showing up sexy, how that often gets blamed on us is that, what were you wearing? How were you showing up? You weren't sober enough. And so there's somehow we are at fault for some of that trauma, and which is complete bullshit, because if somebody stole my fucking wallet, if I just left my wallet on a beach chair and I jumped into the pool or in the beach and my wallet was stolen, would somebody say, well, you deserve to have your wallet stolen. You left it on the chair. You only covered it up in a towel. You were asking for it. Really? It only had a towel, and how much money was in there? What color was so we would never say that the person wasn't a thief. The person who stole that wallet was a thief. And the person who stole my sex from me without consent is a rapist and a perpetrator. And so, but unfortunately, we as women carry this message after sexual trauma that somehow there was something that we did. And so now we feel like we need to start doing something differently moving forward so that doesn't happen again. And then how does that impact our ability to be able to feel sexually empowered, our ability to lean into eroticism? There can be a lot of conflict with giving ourselves permission for that. So looking at that narrative of, how are you framing this trauma? How are you framing your sexuality? How are you framing what is sexy and what is sex? And from there, that's where we figure out what needs to be healed, what needs to be repaired in order to move forward.
Yes. Oh my gosh. The amount of just golden nuggets that you just brought into this space. I mean, I'm going to try to reflect some of them. If I get them wrong, I want you to fix it. If I miss something, I want you to add it. Is that okay?
Yeah. I mean, take whatever you got.
I mean, folks listening, here's what we got, right? I mean, we just talked about what you kept coming back to was like, how do you frame it, right? How do you frame it? And I love the image of framing. Literally, y'all, if you can just picture how you frame something as if it were an image, because if we can picture how something is framed, we can reframe it. Just like any picture, it can be reframed. If the picture's not working for you, we can change the picture, okay? I mean, that in itself is so empowering to know, right? Oh, you mean I don't have to look at myself as a victim forever? I can be a survivor, or gosh, I mean, an activist, or right, that my role can change. Yes, right? Resoundingly, yes. If you allow yourself and consent yourself to go on this journey and reframe it, right? How the canvas looks, right? When I think of that, when people can come and they share their stories with us, right? When they share their stories, there's characters in these stories, right? When you said how is it, what's the narrative around it? That was your language, right, on it. What's the narrative on it? And I think about everything as a character in that story now, and how important it is to recognize that in your image with the wallet being held underneath the towel, that, all right, I put the wallet underneath the towel so that it should, that was my intent, right? And yet a thief came and took it. We need to call that person a thief, not an opportunist, right? It is a thief, period, right? It's the same thing when it comes to sexual assault. And I have found this to be true. And Liz, do you work primarily with women?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, well, no.
No, but okay, across the board.
Yeah, I did my stats recently. I barely have a little bit more women than I do men,
Okay.
but it's probably because I work with a lot of couples.
Okay.
But I love working with women because, I
Yeah.
relate.
Yes. So it's just something that I have found, and I'm sure you have found too, that when it's sexual assault, period, it's not just for women that are left with that story of like, it's me who's to blame. Sexual assault takes away our own autonomy, and the society will say, because it's so uncomfortable, they don't want to blame someone else. No, you must have had some control over this. You're to blame, because it makes people feel more comfortable, as if they could have controlled it, when that is not the case. A thief is a thief. A rapist is a rapist, right? And now I know some people are going to be like, but what do we mean? Always? The way that I would even look at that is, there is a part of someone who was willing to thief, and so they have a part that is a thief, right? If there's a part of someone who is willing to rape, then there is a part of them who was a rapist, right? As opposed to this person is in all aspects that thing. Now, that's not what this episode is about. We're not going to give perspective on thieves and rapists in this episode. But I say that for all of our clients who like, well, that was my friend. They were good to me before that, and then I couldn't believe that they would do that. And it completely shifts everything that, right? That is a whole nother episode, y'all, giving perspective.
Yeah. And we could even just change the language to where we can say that if your wallet was stolen, that you stole something, you raped a person.
Yes.
But we don't have to say that it's a life-changing label that you need to hold on to, that there can be a repair and people can learn. And I think that someone who has raped can learn from that experience when they're given consequences, and then they can move forward, and they don't need to hold that label for their life. But it is something that, if we just look at the idea of, you were raped,
Bingo.
the person raped, the person stole. It doesn't have to. Yeah.
We need to call that moment like it is, right?
Yeah.
We need to acknowledge it and own it for what it is. So that is what there was one other, golden nugget that you had, at least one, right, of the many that you dropped, of this idea of rupture and repair, right? That there's been a rupture and we need to repair. And assailants aside, victimizers aside, right, perpetrators aside, when we think about those of us who are survivors and wanting to repair that piece, and painting this picture for you, coming in and saying, what's the story around it, and being able to reframe it and rewrite it and repaint it, right? And get creative with it. Is there something that you have found people are really open to playing with first? Now, this may be enough for people, right? This idea of, wait, you want me to share the story? If you have the courage to share your story, you are playing with it already, my friends. You're already playing with something that is so hard, right? Then you have the courage to share about how you could shift it. You're all definitely playing with it, right? If you're willing to shift and reframe who you are and where you are and how you see yourself, right? Your relationship with yourself. Is there another activity or something active that helps people really connect with themselves in a more sexually empowered way.
So do you mean, if we're using the analogy or the metaphor of like walk, crawl, walk,
Yes.
run. So now if we went through the crawling stage of the healing, are we past that now? We've done some repair and healing.
Look at this. Look at
And
this.
now we're moving to the walk, and the walk would be activities for exploring our new sexuality, our new selves. Is this?
Yes.
Am I
Yes.
following you? Okay.
Yes. I think that's really valuable for the people who are listening in now
Mhm.
too, because most of them will have done some therapy on this.
Mhm.
Some of them will not, right? This will be the
Yeah.
first time, but if they're really listening and they're taking this in, I really
Mhm.
think about, okay, we've got this crawling. I need to play with it. I need to get into an office, get my story out there, right? With someone who can really hold it, because our
Mhm.
friends and our family cannot necessarily hold these spaces for us.
Yeah.
But if I get out there, okay, wait, so I crawled, Liz, how do I get to start walking with you?
The first thought that comes to mind, and I might have addressed this with clients before even we did the healing, we might just talk about it, but I think this would be the time to actually to either to talk about it or revisit it, is the idea of like, what's your vision? What is your vision for what is sexy? What is erotic? How do you imagine having that next enthusiastically consensual sexual experience?
Enthusiastically consensual.
Yeah. And so imagining, do you want it to be you really taking control and dominating that experience? Do you want it to be a very tactile, very outer course sort of experience where you're enjoying just getting to know each other without the idea of having intercourse? And what would it feel like for you to safely take those steps? And what is the end? What are you looking at? Like, are you wanting to be able to have a really a wide palette of interests and things that excite you, ways of being? Do you want to, what does the first sexual experience look like? Or maybe you have a partner that you're having sex with, and do you need to slow things down so that you are feeling like that you're taking what you want rather than just acquiescing to maintain that sexual relationship, because it's so tough for someone who this has happened to and they're already in a physically intimate relationship, and so they're trying to be able to like maintain that. But I think that it is important for them again to start to create a vision of what is it that you want to create and what feels comfortable. What are some things that would feel comfortable for you to do right now? Would it be really nice to just find a partner to start kissing and to revisit just kissing and keeping your clothes on? And then we might talk about, how are you going to communicate that to someone? I'm baffled by how many people I talk to, friends and clients, where they're back in the dating scene, or or maybe they've struggled with the dating scene all along, and feeling like they don't give themselves permission to say, so just so you know, I'm really not ready for physical intimacy. I want to date. I'd like to get to know you. But I don't know that I'm ready for physical intimacy yet. So I'm going to need to take it really, really slow. And I don't even think that you need to tell somebody that right away. I think you need to wait until you like them, because you know what? This is a gift, honey. I don't want to give this to somebody that I don't even know that I like. And so even when there isn't sexual trauma, I think so many women, we feel like, oh, like maybe I shouldn't be dating because I'm not ready for physical intimacy. Well, are you ready for emotional intimacy? Are you wanting to be in a romantic relationship? Why does that have to have physical intimacy? And I think people, when they hear that from a sex therapist, they're baffled. They're like, oh, like you're giving me permission to experience my own eroticism, but then take it extremely slow with a new partner. Yes, I'm giving you permission to do that because you've already experienced having a sexual experience with someone that you regretted or that felt like it was taken from you. And so give yourself permission to say, I need to get to know you, and I need to know that I like you, and that if I were to have sex with you, that I wouldn't regret it a week after because I go, damn, that person was a jackass.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I really, and this, yeah. So I think that is, I just said a bunch of stuff, and so I don't know how.
Reflect. I'm going to reflect it back because it was full of golden nuggets again. And I think maybe every week, and listeners hear this because you can learn from other people and their stories. Every week, I think I hear from someone about how they have, instead of crawling before they walked, they tried to jump into running or skipping, right? And they didn't crawl before they walked. And they regret jumping into bed with someone or jumping into intimacy with someone, or even just sharing vulnerably with someone when they were like, it was our first date. And then I told them all these things and I wish that I hadn't, right? I've got a vulnerability hangover, right? Crawl before you walk and give yourself permission to say, this is my crawl, and I'm going to crawl how I want to crawl, right? And I'm going to slink how I want to slink. And I'm going to I'm going to be the panther, baby. I'm going to be the panther until I'm ready to climb up that tree. What, right? And then let's crawl before we walk, right? And really taking that and making it your own. It is predictable that the media and society is going to tell you what I talk about so often is the should narrative, the danger of should. You should be ready to get up on the next person. You should be ready to move on. You should be healed by now. I'm sorry, say what? This is my healing journey. Thank you very much. Mm-hmm. Should is a
and box. You should be able to put out if you're dating.
Oh my gosh.
I'm sorry, dating does not equal sex. Dating means I'm possibly physically interested in you. I want to see if there's a chemistry, and I want to see if you're a likable person, and that's dating.
Space for opportunity. A space for opportunity. It does not mean it is the opportunity. It does not mean it is the time. It is a space for opportunity, right? Mm-hmm. We've got to play in that space, and if we don't want to play in that space, we can leave that space. We don't have to finish the date. This is another piece that I'll get with from people is, and I know we're moving close to wrapping up, y'all. And there's this beautiful piece that you said about creating your vision, right? Creating your vision. And I don't know how many people will say, well, I stood on the date because I felt bad. No, give yourself an out. If you are not enjoying that date, you are not enjoying that moment. If you are in the middle of something and you are like, this isn't for me, know your exit strategy. Have it planned ahead of time. What's your exit strategy? Right.
Thank you so much for, it was nice meeting you. Yes. I don't think we're a great match, just like I said, I have those plans at whatever time. Yes. So great, Nina. I think exactly is that vision is boundaries also. Yeah, the boundaries that you're talking about. Yeah.
Okay. So creating a vision. Crawl before you walk. These are some of the nuggets that we're taking out of this. We set out to transform a hard conversation into some teachable moments. It is very obvious to me, right? When I say, let's reflect back, crawl before you walk, creating a vision, being able to share your story the way you see it, not the way somebody else tells you that it is, right? But the way you know it to be as your story. These are just some of the nuggets I'm taking away. Liz, do you feel like we transformed a hard conversation into teachable moments?
I think so. I mean, as much as you could in 30 minutes, right?
I know, right?
I think we did it. I mean, to talk about to have in one sentence to talk about sexual trauma and then say sexual empowerment. I think that's, and just anything with sex, any sentence with sex in it is provocative. And I was
going to say it's a loaded sentence, but
loaded, yeah.
Puns on this, puns for days. Okay, so of course we are at the end of the episode now. I want people to be able to create their, story with you, share their story with you, potentially play with this idea of themselves with you. How can they get a hold of you?
Yeah. Well, you can always find me at talksexwithliz.com. I do probably almost daily videos on TikTok. I love doing that. That's just a little fun thing where I'll think, oh, here's a great topic that we talked about today in session. And I want to share it with people who don't have the opportunity to talk to a sex therapist on a regular basis. So I love doing that, whether it's fun or serious. And you can find my program at Talk Sex with Liz as well. And I think that my program would be perfect for people who have been through sexual trauma, but even if you haven't, I mean, it's not geared towards people, but it is geared towards women who are wanting to become sexually empowered, who are wanting to reignite desire that may have been lost. So maybe you were sexually empowered and now all just the sudden you've lost it because of some trauma, or maybe you've lost your desire just because of the phase of life you're in, post babies, long-term relationship, whatever it is. That if you've made it, if you're ready to walk, if you've worked on your sexual trauma and you're ready to walk, then this program would be great for you. It's 4 weeks with me. It's in a group environment, but completely anonymous. I give everybody picks their own a sexual diva pseudonames, no videos, but it's online, and an opportunity that over a 4-week process, you're able to identify the negative narratives that have stopped you from being sexually empowered in ways that serve you, ways that you specifically are just extinguishing your desire. And then I helped you identify ways to fuel that desire. And then week by week, then we figure out, I help you to communicate that to new partners, to current partners, because it's hard. Talking about sex is difficult. So first you've got to figure out what it is that I'm doing that works for me, what I'm doing that isn't working for me, and then be able to communicate that with people. And I put this together in a 4-week program because I've recognized that it's hard for people to be able to work through that in therapy. Not everybody has access to that. And if you're struggling and you need something to be able to give you the guidance, and you get every week, you're going to get time with me, Q&As with your specific questions. And I'm so excited about the program because it's something I've helped thousands of women one-on-one. And for me, it is my little love child that I've created to be able to help women that don't have the opportunities that all of my clients do. And so I'm always excited to talk about it. But yeah, and if you can't do that, then find me on TikTok, and there's got to be a topic that you relate to, hopefully. And if there isn't, then send me a comment on TikTok and I will create a video on your topic.
Yeah. Yes, responding to our community's needs.
Yes, I'm a server.
I love it. I love it. Folks, we've had so much goodness in this episode. I'm going to put all of this in the show notes as well, so that, you don't have to rewind unless you want to hear some more of it again, right? It's going to be in the show notes. Thank you so much, Liz, for being here with us. I love to leave listeners with like a challenge for the upcoming week, something for them to sort of like salivate on or percolate with, right? And I feel like my question, based on what, the goodness that you have brought into this space today, is really, when we think about crawling versus walking versus running, that is a wonderful diagnostic metaphor tool, right? A way to diagnose yourself, so to speak, if you are not sure where you're at and now you're thinking, where am I with my sexual self? That's my question to you this upcoming week, is just to think about, just privately in your own head, where are you with your own sexual self? And if you're sitting, waiting to explore it, fantastic. If you're crawling, ready to explore it, great. If you're walking, fantastic. Do you see where I'm going with this? It doesn't matter where you are. Just give yourself permission to know and own that you are where you are. That's how you can then get to ask yourself, am I ready to go into therapy with this? Or am I ready to take Liz's course? I'm ready to turn it up a notch. I'm ready to get out there and get sexually empowered. Yes. Ask yourself that question. That's my challenge for the upcoming week, y'all. Anything else you want to add, Liz, before we move to close?
No, thanks so much for having me. And this was fun. This was a fun conversation that we made out of a really fucked up topic. honestly.
Yes.
And if you have to bleep that, then bleep it. I get it. I forgot to ask if we're allowed to have sexually explicit comments in this meeting, but
I will let people know there's an F-bomb that gets dropped, and otherwise I think it'll be all right. I think it'll be okay. But otherwise, that is what we planned for today, folks. So thank you for taking a minute to explore your triggers as a human being. And if this episode was helpful, share it. That's it. That's all you have to do. Is if it was helpful, do your challenge question, but share it, right? Share it with somebody else who you think it might help, right? That gives them the opportunity to decide for themselves if they want to actually watch or listen. Yeah. Otherwise, stay curious.
and go have sex.
I love that we threw that in. And go have sex consensually with yourself, with others, in your head, fantastically, however it is, so long as it is enthusiastically given.
Yes.